My name is Rabbi Yaakov David Cohen. I'm here with a very special guest, Rabbi Yosef Mizrachi. Shalom, Rabbi Yosef.
Shalom. Shalom Aleichem, my pleasure.
And today we're going to talk about, number one, tell us a little about yourself and about your work. You know, we're out there trying to promote peace and unity and love to all people. And this is what it's about. It's about spreading the word of Torah. Torah was given for the sake of peace. Kol derchecha shalom. And obviously you've been out there, so we're gonna, without further ado, please, Rabbi Mizrachi, tell us about yourself.
Well, so I've been a speaker for 22 years now. I started in Hebrew only, and then after September 11, that was also when I started to give lectures in English. In English, yeah. I started in English after September 11. And it's been, constantly growing more and more. I've been traveling all over the world. I've been almost in any possible country that there are Jews there. I gave approximately about 5,000 lectures and seminars and TV shows and all kinds of things like that. And I have a website, divineinformation.com.
Okay, so let's talk about
which is very
informative. Yeah. Let's talk about the divine information, because we're in the divine. We're promoting the divine image, which I've written a book titled Divine Image, which is we're here promoting the Sheva Mitzvot B'nai Noach. This is really a show promoting Jews and non-Jews all coming together, not as Jews, but coming together as finding the bridge. Finding the common thread that unites all humanity. It's about uniting people together as nations. As it says, when Mashiach comes, V'hoya Hashem HaMelech al kol haaretz, Hashem echad v'shmad. Right. So let's look at me. Let's talk about some of your work. I've traveled to China, Chinese, Korea, Japan. They're very interested, and also I don't speak Spanish, but I seem to get a lot of people from Facebook asking me about, do you speak Spanish? Unfortunately, I barely speak English. I speak only a little English. But Baruch Hashem, as we say in goes, we try to bring the divine message to all people, the divine message.
Yeah, like a few years ago, I had a debate. It became a very famous debate with a Christian professor about Christianity, and it was a 3 hours debate. And after the debate finished, I started to get many, many thousands of Gentiles who started to listen to the rest of my lectures. After they watched the debate, they decided they want to leave Christianity. And the next step was to direct them, what do they have to do in life? What's their purpose? What's the purpose of the life of the Gentiles here? The Jews, they got the Torah and a public event from God, so they know what their purpose. But how someone from Korea or India or anywhere else in the world, how would they find out what's their purpose? Apparently, there's nobody else that can do it besides the rabbis. The rabbis has to teach the world what's the purpose of all the billions of Gentiles that lives here. Since we have more than 80,000 religions and cults today, and they keep inventing new religions, obviously we have a responsibility as the Jewish nation, the chosen nation of God, to spread His word not only to Jews worldwide, also to Gentiles. As the Gemara said in a few different places, we have to be the light for the nations. And therefore, we have a responsibility to teach all the Gentiles that they're not allowed to be idol worshippers, they're not allowed to make any second god and to have a god, with a sun, or all kinds of statues and animals and trees and all kinds of things that they worship, or the stars. So since there are so many different ways of idol worshippings today, our responsibility is to prevent it. And that's one of the 7 laws of Noah, that the Gentiles cannot worship any idols, but they have to just follow God.
Right, which is really what the first law is about, God, the unity of God. It says that in order for God to have unity, He had unity before He created the world. He created a world, He created diversity. People don't look alike, note, even though the facial features of every person is similar, but the people do not look alike. What does that mean? People do not think alike. But the common thread that unites us all is if we find the one God. Like you say, finding the one God, as we come closer and closer to the time where everything's exposed, Mashiach is coming. So therefore, idol worship, people say, well, why do I have to worship to an idol when I could, worship God directly? It's like, I like to make a joke about it. Like I say,
why do we need a middleman?
It's like a joke. I say, it's a little bit of a joke, but I say, if you want to buy wholesale, you come to the Jewish people. Every religion took parts, components of the Jewish religion, of Judaism. For instance, Christianity took some parts. Islam has, parts of the Torah. They have the idea of Achnas Sarchim, is very big by them. Everyone took one part. So if you want to get the whole picture and you get it for cheaper, come to the Jewish people. But, that's just a joke. But the reality is, not everyone has to become Jewish, but we need all to come to find the common thread. And that's why I think the universal Noahide code is so important, because it allows us to find that bridge, to find that commonality, that thread that unites all people. It allows us to unite people as one, without going into details. Which religion you belong to, who do you pray to? It resonates between all people.
Well, I can add to what you say.
Right.
We as the nation of the book, as Muhammad called us, Muhammad, the founder of Islam, he called us Am HaSefer, the nation of the book.
Mm-hmm.
We are the one who received the Torah in a public event in front of millions of witnesses. And after the world saw that the Jews got a book from God, he took them out of Egypt and he gave them his book, and he chose them to be his children, and he gave them some kind of privileges that other nations never had. Many of the Gentiles and the nations, they try to copy the Jews by forming a form of religion. It was sometimes done by one individual who came and claimed that God gave him a book. Sometimes it was formed by the people as a cult. One way or the other, we in Judaism hold God did not give more than one religion. He gave one, and that's it. He has one true, and he gave his true in the Torah of the Jewish nation.
Right.
The Torah does not only apply to Jews. It's also a book of instructions to all the Gentiles. The Jews, it's their responsibility to spread.
As Gentiles. In other words, Gentiles.
As Gentiles. Exactly, as Gentiles.
As Gentiles, they could maintain, they don't have to become Jewish. The one religion that doesn't seek membership is Judaism, because it's very difficult to become a Jew.
Well, I can tell you that in almost every religion that I know, that I met people and spoke to them about their religion or learned about their religion, there is something that is always repeats in common, meaning if you're not Muslim, you don't have heaven. You must become Muslim if you want to go to heaven when you die. Same thing Christians. You have to believe in JC. If you don't believe in him, you won't go to heaven. The only religion, to the best of my knowledge, obviously I don't know 80,000 religions and cults, but from the main one that we all know, that say to the Gentiles, you don't have to be Jewish. We are not missionaries. We're not after anyone. We don't come to persuade you and convince you. We're not going to brainwash you to become Jewish. The opposite is the truth. We encourage you to stay what you are. This is the way God made you. There's nothing wrong about it. You're a human being. You were created in the image of God, and He gave you the 7 laws. You have to keep the 7 laws, and you are considered a righteous Gentile. And when you die one day, you go to heaven, the heaven of the Gentiles. You have no obligation to convert to Judaism. However, if a Gentile agree or decided that he doesn't want to be a Gentile, he wants to convert and become a Jew, he has the right. The Torah gave this right also. But like I said, no one has to feel any pressure. No one has to feel guilty if he doesn't do it.
Right. Everyone goes to heaven if they keep the Torah.
If they listen to the word of God.
Right.
We are the Jews. We have 613 commandments. Right. Even though about 70 or 80% of them doesn't apply today when we don't have the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. So many of them are not in effect right now. When the Messiah would come, we will go back to the 613 obligations that we have. But right now, obviously, we still have a lot more obligation than an average Gentile has. But the Gentiles has to know the most important thing: they don't have permission to worship any other God. They have to worship only the God of heaven and earth. He created the world, and He is the God of the Torah. It's described in the Torah. Judaism started when the Torah was given to the Jewish nation approximately 3,300 years ago. Christianity came 1,300 years later. Islam came 2,000 years later. Those religions came way after Judaism already were spread all over the world. Everyone knew about it. Right. And so therefore, there's nothing new in their books that does not exist in our book, unless if it's not the truth. Whatever they added later on, anything that contradicts our Torah, that means that's not the word of God. But we're not here to talk about this issue. For that, I have a film that I made, Torah and Science.
Really? Torah and Science?
Torah and Science. Every Jew and Gentile that are interested, they can go into my website, divineinformation.com. On the front page, they can watch Torah and Science. It's a 4-hour seminar. At least no doubt. It was translated to 9 different languages. I'll give you an example. You mentioned about Noahide, that Gentiles becoming observants of the 7 laws. I one day got an email from Philippines. And in Philippines, they told me that after they listened to my lectures over there, they all decided that they cannot be Christians. They want to join the real religion of God and to keep the laws that God say to the Gentiles. So they opened the Facebook page, and they have more than, back then, 2 months or 3 months ago when they sent me that email, back then they wrote that they have more than 1,000 members already in Philippines that became observants of the 7 laws. I know that I have many other thousands, but
it's actually
it's a movement.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago I woke up 6 o'clock in the morning, New York time, to give a lecture via Skype, which was about 8 o'clock Philippines time.
Oh.
And we were able to communicate with the people and so on. But like you say, the idea is promoting the one God, promoting the unity, and promoting the diversity of people. I think God created everyone different. Right. Different cultures. Some people are more emotional. Some people are more intellectual. Some people are more. Everyone has there's 70 nations, but 7 laws for 70 nations, all coming together as one. And
70 nations that broke into thousands,
into billions.
Originally,
well, now
70.
we have billions of people out there,
right.
Which originally came from 70 nations, but the 70 nations is like a generic term for non-Jew.
Right.
Which the 70 nations, as we know that during the time of the Bet HaMikdash, in the time of Sukkot, we actually each nation brought paid pilgrimage and homage to the temple, and the bulls, and they
the Jews were sacrificing it for them for the entire 7 days.
For the 7 days.
For the 7
and then
nations.
finally the Jewish people.
The last day, Shmini Atzeret,
was for the Jewish
is
people.
only 1 cow for the Jews.
Right.
All the other 70 was all for the Gentiles.
Right.
And then when the Romans destroyed the temple, the Talmud say they destroyed, and they didn't know that they're actually hurting themselves.
Right.
We used to make special prayers for them.
Not only that, they don't realize.
They didn't realize.
If it says if the people, the non-Jews, would realize the blessings that the temple brings, and the Torah and the Jewish people bring, they would guard the temple. They would send guards to actually guard the temple. But be that as it may, we're living in a time now where everyone has the opportunity to overcome their selfish instinct and to rise above and to become a better person. So let's try, like you say, in the Philippines and China.
But also,
and the beauty about it is today we have Skype, so I don't have to travel 15 hours from Newark into Tokyo, and then a few hours into Manila. The
world became one neighborhood.
We all experience everything in one minute.
But I want to add one more thing to your words. Is many of the Gentiles, they are listening to us now and thinking, I'm a faithful Christian, I'm a faithful Muslim, I follow religion, I pray 5 times a day, I love God. why would I leave all of that and become an observant of only 7 laws? So first of all, it's not exactly 7. It comes to approximately 40 altogether. But the rule is like this. There are 7 main laws. Like the Jews have the 10 commandments. So they have 7 main commandments.
Right.
But every commandment that is required by common sense, the Gentiles must obey.
Right.
Meaning,
honoring
if
your
John,
parents,
honoring your parents,
visiting
not
the
to
sick,
make the streets dirty, not to hit people, not to blackmail people. This is not written in the 7 commandments.
Right.
But it's needless to say, if you are a human being, you must observe all these common sense laws.
Right.
So it's much more than that. And if you're not a good person and you take advantage on people and you're violent and you do all kinds of things, even though they're not mentioned specifically in the 7 laws, they still are judged for it. That's one thing.
Right.
But the second thing is, I give you an example. I asked once in my lecture, what is worse? Someone that does not do anything, a Gentile that is an atheist, he doesn't believe in anything, or a Gentile that follow a fake religion. A religion that somebody made up, it's full of human errors. So he's following a specific book, Quran, New Testament, whatever you want to call it. And then someone that doesn't keep anything. So leave me alone, I just do whatever I want. Who is really violating more rules of God? And the answer to this question is, let's try to be God for a minute. What would make you angrier? That someone follow a fake book, not a book that you gave, and is willing to die for that book, but it's not your book. Your book, it's this one. This one contradict your book. For instance, God's...
Not according to some of the rulers, Christianity and Islam is not considered idol worship. So
Islam for sure not.
And
Islam for sure not. Christianity is a machloket. Yes.
So
if it's shituf.
Right, shituf. Right.
Yeah.
So the point is.
No, but that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. I'm going to make myself a little bit more clear. There wasn't an issue if Islam is idol worshipping or not. I said it hundreds of times in my lecture that it's not.
Or even Christianity for that
matter. But we're not talking about that. We're talking now about that, for instance, a Muslim is fasting for 40 days in a Ramadan.
Okay, it's good. It's good for a diet.
Right, for instance. Okay, now, he's thinking he's doing what God told him to do. The question is, as a Gentile, does he have an obligation to fast 40 days? The answer is no. So, for instance, it could be the 2 Arabs, one is following the Quran very, very strictly, and the other one is not following the Quran. Right. He's fasting and putting efforts, and the other one is not doing it. Right. The other one that is not doing it is not breaking any law. Actually, the one who goes against the book of God is the one that thinking that he's doing what God told him to do. We come and tell all the Gentiles in the world, there is only one religion to all Gentiles, whether it's Chinese, whether it's Arab, whether it's Russian, European, it doesn't matter where they are from. Many of the Gentiles went from one nation to the other, Yeah. For instance, you have people that live in Syria and their last name is El Masri, meaning that their grandparents came from Egypt to Syria, right? And then you have people that came from Syria and they went to France. And in 3 generations, their grandchildren will be French people. So the idea is that all Gentiles, as we know from the time of Sancherib, the king, they all got mixed. And you don't know for sure who is from Ishmael. You don't know who's an original Arab. You don't know who's an original Esav. You don't know because it's all got mixed in a history. So therefore, all Gentiles, it's not relevant where they're from. They all have one religion. What is it? To be an observant of the 7 laws and all the common sense commandments that is required by common sense, and that's it. Any additional observing all kinds of books and fake prophets and different sons of God and all kinds of idols and anything that they add extra, it's a violation of the rules of God. It's not something that is interested for you to do. So you have to reconsider if that's what you want. You want to follow a book thinking it's the book of God and it's not, or you want to just fulfill your real obligation and be a righteous Gentile. I have nothing against any of these religions. I don't know who they are. I mean, many of them, I don't even know them by name. It's nothing personal. We have to represent God exactly as he represented himself. And he gave the Torah, and he says in the Torah, this Torah will never be dismissed. It will never be changed. Anyone who changed one letter from the Torah is the biggest sinner on earth.
Right.
And therefore, not Jews and not Gentiles has any permission to create another book to contradict the laws of the Torah, whether it applies to Jews or whether it applies to Gentiles. See, not you and not me and not Muhammad and not Chris and not Mr. Lee from China. None of us had any permission to modify the original text of the Torah, which is 304,805 letters. If we change one letter, then we become criminals. We go again and rebel against the real God and his original book. Therefore, no one has permission to do it. All the people who came later on and claim that God sent them and they brought another book, by reviewing their books, you see it's full of thousands of human errors. It cannot be from God. Plus, it contradicts the Torah.
Right. So the idea is to focus on the uniting factor. The uniting factor is that each and every person what is created in the divine image.
Right, 100%.
And every person is God's creature and loves every person. He put you here. He or she put you here for a purpose, to live up. There's challenges every single day, but the idea is to rise above the challenges and to discover God. Right now, the path of discovering God is a challenge because there's a lot of distractions out there.
Well, it starts with that many people, they have a question or a doubt if the book is really a divine book.
Well, also, you have to understand that a lot of wars and hatred and animosity has been committed in the name of God.
Right.
So, we don't want to go into that. We want to focus on the positive.
Right.
But the reality is, and by all religion, and we don't want to go into specifics, but the reality is, the fact is that in the name of God. So you understand why people are upset or disenchanted or with the idea of religion.
Right.
But the idea is to not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Find the true and ultimate religion, which is the Torah. Torah was given, like we started, for the sake of peace. Its ways are peace. Shalom. All its ways. It's Talmid
peace
Chachamim.
And prosperity. Yes.
Peace and prosperity. Torah is given Talmid Chachamim Ma'adim Shalom. The rabbis or the sages are there to promote peace, and even peace. God's name is erased for the sake of peace between man and woman.
Right.
So the idea of a union between men and women, which men should be men, women should be women. Each one has their unique, godly given dimensions which God created them in, and each one should be celebrated, just like every person should be celebrated in his or her, whether it's tall, short, whichever complexion or dimension people come in, or as the saying goes, people come from all shapes and sizes, but we all come together as a collage of people and creating that symphony for God.
As you know, according to our prophets, when the Messiah would come, and after the world will be purified and go back to the level of Adam before he committed the sin, and there will be one of the main things that will happen in the world, that all the nations would live in peace. No more wars, no more bloodsheds, no more racism, no more anti-Semitism, none of these things. There's not going to be any need for wars, even in nature, even between the tiger and the goat. They will live one next to another. Everything will be totally peaceful.
As Isaiah says, the prophet Isaiah put it, they will prune swords, instruments of war, into plowsheds.
Right.
Instruments to bring peace.
Right.
No war, no nation shall wage war against another nation.
But even now, I give you one some simple example. I gave one time a parable in one of my lectures. I said, you have a king, and the king has a son. And he said all the time how much he loves his son. His son is not the greatest kid in the world. He making some things that get his father upset, but he's still the son of the king. And then you have guys in the neighborhood that try to harm that son of the king. So they come to the king and say to him, help us to kill your son. Help us to break his bones. It doesn't make any sense, this parable. You're coming to me to help you to hurt my son. And what's the story behind this parable? Many of the nations, when they created themselves a religion, whether it's Christianity, Islam, or others, many of them, even though, thank God, there are many, many Gentiles who respect Jews and love them and everything is fine, but on the other hand, we have those who don't. And they make all kinds of accusation and all kinds of problems and anti-Semitism and terrorism. So my question to those people is, do you really think that this is what God wants? After you admitted that the Jews received the Torah in Mount Sinai, he gave it to you in front of the whole universe. Everybody saw that God is giving his book to the children of Israel. Yeah. He called himself the God of Israel. And he says clearly in the text, I chose you from all the nation to be my children.
Right, but when he gave us the Torah, he gave the entire world the 7 laws of Noah.
Exactly.
So they have a part as part
100%. We said that already. 100%. No question about this. But the idea is, how would any Gentile in the world think that even though God says that you, the Jews, if you don't follow my ways, I'm going to punish you. And we got some punishments in history. You cannot deny it. But the idea that I'm saying to the all nations in the world, include to the nation of Israel, the idea to hate somebody else in the name of God, that's totally wrong.
God doesn't demand that we hate.
You understand?
And hate and
to hate someone because he was born in a specific country or in a specific different parts of the earth, that's a violation of the rule. The Torah defines who is righteous and who is wicked. It can be a righteous Jew and a wicked Jew. It can be a righteous Gentile and a wicked Gentile. Yeah. Nobody is wicked because of what nation he was born into. No one is righteous because he was born in a specific country. You don't become righteous or wicked because of the color of your skin or the accent or the language that you speak or in what country you were born. You only become righteous or wicked according to your behaving. You follow the instructions of the book of God, whether you're a Jew or a Gentile that has to follow his rules, you are a righteous Jew or a righteous Gentile. You ignore it, you contradict it, you go against it, you rebel against it, then you become either a wicked Jew or a wicked Gentile.
And this is
the same concept.
Yeah, yeah. And this is why the Jewish, it says that God created all people, but he created a person singular.
100%.
Because each person can say, well, I'm more inclined to come from robbers and so on, so therefore I have to live up to my reputation. But the idea is each and every one of us represents a gift, a divine soul, a divine creation. Everyone, Jew and Gentile alike.
Right.
And every one of us has the ability to shine and light up. Let's light up the world. Let's bring peace and love, as the saying goes.
Hopefully.
The world you can't hide anymore with the internet and
everything's public.
That's it. Everything is broadcast on YouTube or on Facebook the next day or the next few minutes. So therefore, we all have the ability to create that light and to bring that goodness. So really, it's about finding that resource and turning on that light. And light, for that matter, Torah is compared to light, because light doesn't create everything. It gives you a sense of perspective. Here's a table, here's a chair, it tells you what to do, a book of instructions. Torah gives us an idea how to live, what to live. There's nothing in the Torah that doesn't tell you either to do it or don't do it.
Right. Every subject is covered.
Every subject.
And a person has a free choice, and he chooses to do right or wrong. Everything was decided for the human being. Who your parents, where you will be born, the color of your skin, generally your level of intelligence, and how bright is your brain, if you're going to be healthy or not. As one thing was not decided, meaning it's 100% in the person's hand, if to be righteous or wicked, whether you're Jewish, whether you're not. Right. You have a set of rules. You have your evil inclination. Obviously, Gentiles also have evil inclination. Some of their things that they're not allowed to do, their evil inclination will tell them to do. Just like with the Jews. You're not allowed this and this and that. The evil inclination would say you can do it, nothing will happen. This is the test in life. As it says in the Torah a few times, I'm testing you to see, will you follow my commandments or not? Do you love me or not? There's all kinds of verses in the Torah. And what does it say in the end? I will reward you in your end. I will reward you and your children for eternity. And so therefore you can see right here that the world is created and the Torah was given based on one main rule. To be righteous, it will bring the reward. To be wicked, it will bring the opposite. And every person has the test of his life, individually or as a part of a nation.
I think we're going to have to wrap it up because I think we're running out of time over here. Are we running out of time? Okay, so we're going to have to wrap it up. I want to thank you.
Thank you, my pleasure.
And let's hope that we promote. We all come together. It says like
right.
That everyone will come together and see us and live up to their own potential. I want to thank our viewers. If you want to contact Rabbi Mizrachi, he's
by email. They can email me rabbimizrachi@gmail.com.
Or the website is.
I have also a few Facebook pages in Hebrew, in English, in other languages, and my website is divineinformation.com. You can also see me on TorahAnytime.com. It's also a very important website that it's all over with hundreds of good speakers. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Shalom.
My pleasure. Shalom.
Shalom. See you.